fight. We're going to look through, somebody's done an Instagram breakdown of how rigged that Tyson Paul fight was. And yeah, super rigged, super duper rigged. Alberta is on the NGO grift. So the other day I was telling you about how if governments want something done that they can't do, like censorship, they just give a whole bunch of money to non-government agencies, which they've helpfully titled non-government agencies, to help us distinguish that these are not government agencies, right? But they're funded by the government, so the government just pays them off to do those things they can't do, like censorship. And so Alberta's in on this script to the tune of lots of money, and I'll show you that. Globalists have taken over policing. The head of Edmonton Police Commission has moved to Portugal, and he's like, yeah, no, I'm just going to do this via Zoom, right? If something happens and you're like, I'm going to go down there myself and talk to this guy, right? I'm going to shake this guy down in person so I can, pick up all those vibes and stuff. Setting a Zoom meeting has a different feel, right? Oh, I'd really like to talk to you, sir. Do you have time for clicking on this link? What? No. Randy Hillier has the government appeal his innocence. So the government is not happy. Oh gosh, I didn't realize this was like that. The government is not happy with Randy Hillier, and so they are trying to appeal the lower court, vacating all of his charges and saying, yeah, well, didn't do anything, right? And so wild stuff going on. Lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start with what's going on in BC. And I've said, if I was a conservative MP or MPP or MLA, I think it's MLA out in BC, I would not be able to follow John Rustad after the election win and subsequent concession to EB after all of the irregularities without fighting at all. Absolutely weak. I wouldn't be able to follow somebody like that. I'd be like, listen, I'm out. You can do whatever you want, but I'm not going to participate in this nonsense. And, well, it seems that at least somebody, Paul Ratchford, says today, I resigned from my position as a board member on the Conservative Party of British Columbia. So he's not an MP or MLA or anything like that, but part of the machine from the BC Conservatives is saying I'm out. He says, unfortunately, I've lost confidence in the leadership of this party to deliver the much needed change for British Columbians. So yikes. Globalists, maybe. I'm not sure. He goes on. He says, fundamentally, I see a lack of understanding of the extent to which the tentacles of the state are eroding the quality of life in British Columbia. The size of the Leviathan has grown far beyond its useful purpose. It's completely unacceptable that conservatives propose a budget which included a larger deficit than the NDP with no balanced budget until a second term. Major cuts to the bloated public sector need to be made to unleash the economic growth via the private sector. The recent dismissal of Tim, this guy, an excellent former candidate, strong fundraiser, valued staff member, and one of the most articulate advocates for conservative ideas in British Columbia, is yet another of many actions that have been destructive to our movement. Should the current Conservatives form government, it appears we would do little more than preside over the ongoing managed decline of British Columbia. The current leadership of the CP, the Conservative Party of British Columbia, lacks the vision and fortitude necessary to aggressively, unflinchingly shrink the state, stand firm on conservative values, massively improve the quality of life for every British Columbian, and make this province one we can once again be proud of. With strong, high-caliber leadership, British Columbia could be among the freest and most prosperous jurisdictions in North America. I remain hopeful that this can someday be achieved. We're not on that pathway whatsoever. We are like on the opposite pathway. We are on the pathway of becoming an authoritarian, autocratic, very, very encumbered society with internet censorship and inability to even hold our leaders accountable. Never mind say that man is a man, not a woman. It's just a man in a dress, right? Like we won't even be able to say that. We won't be free. It will be the opposite because of what we're doing. Herb says it's not just Justin Trudeau ruining Canada. It's the agenda in which he and his party are administering. The same agenda being applied in country after country. And I hope I've made very clear, I've tried to, that what's happening in Canada is a framework. And they're doing it in New Zealand. The censorship, the masking, the COVID nonsense, the boosters, all of it. They're doing it in Australia. They're doing it in England. They're doing it in all of the United Kingdom. They're doing it all across Europe. They're doing it in the United States. They're doing it in other places that they control. South America to a degree. Although in South America, they're encouraging people to go invade the United States with money. It's monetary. They're incentivizing with money. These people are showing up and able to figure out a system to get children to use to cross the border, right? And more, and they're organized and they're well funded. It's not people who are like, what should we do today? Let's go across the U.S. border. It's much more complicated and much more in depth than that, right? And so it's not just happening in Canada. This is a coordinated effort across multiple countries, and I think this is a good point. Herbs continues. Trudeau is just a middleman. He's a sales rep. He says, how can I get you into this car? I understand there are a whole bunch of people in the car that you don't want in the car, but I really need you to get in the car, because if you don't get in the car and pay your taxes, nobody can ride around in it, right? And so it's a sales rep, and Trudeau's falling on deaf ears. Nobody wants to listen to him. But the machine has chosen Poilievre, and Poilievre is, everybody thinks that he's going to save us. And he says Canadians think another sales rep with a different pitch will save them. It won't. I agree. I feel like I think that two things, the problems that we face are bigger than moving between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And two, we can fix these issues. We are capable of fixing these issues. It's not out of reach. I firmly believe both those things. Cobra says, this is not Islamophobia, this is truth. So this is kind of on the heels of that. This guy's talking about Islam and Europe and history, and I'm going to find out after the show that this guy's some well-known, he's well-known for his X views or whatever, right? I don't know anything about this guy. I just listened to what he's saying, and I think that he's accurate about this. And I think that the danger he's articulating for Europe is a danger for the broader West, in the same way that we're seeing these policies roll out across the West, right? From Australia and New Zealand to the southern United States and beyond. So here's what's going on, but it's only one piece of it. It's not the whole thing, right? This is just one vector of attack. There are many other vectors of attack. Islam is one. The continent of India, or the country of India is another. All of those things move to destabilize the West. All of those things move to have entitled people move to places that they've been told need them. They've been told desperately need them, so on and so forth, need their capability, need their talent, need their birth rate, whatever it is. But the messaging is, we are needed, necessary, and you guys are kind of past your sell-by date, past due. And, well, we're just losing a psyop, a war against ourselves. And it seems like our government's coordinating it and using our tax dollars to bring in different vectors of attack. This guy's talking just about Islam, but the history of it's very interesting, and I think it applies. Here we go.
You're not doomed yet, but in all of world history, there has never been a civilization that has so opened its doors to another civilization that is openly hostile to it. So this is unprecedented, what's happening. Your ancestors of Europe, when I describe it in my books, because I write about history, fought tooth and nail to prevent Islam from entering and conquering Europe, because that was one of the grand plans and went on for century after century. From the east, the Turks were trying to enter Constantinople. They surrounded Vienna in 1683, and before that, the Muslims, I told you, went up into Tours in France. In 732, 1,000 years later, this was an actual goal. And now Western Europe is saying, oh, none of that matters. It was a misunderstanding. Come on in. But they haven't changed. That mentality, and when I say they, that's obviously, I'm simplifying. The mentality that I've described is part of Islam. It's an Islamic concept. So the Islamic State, you're told, oh yeah, they have nothing to do with Islam. They've twisted it. No, they haven't. They are a representation of what Islam, the caliphs, the sultanates, the emirates, that's how they operated. The heads of Islam, the grand imams and the muftis said the same exact thing. Okay, so that is what it is. Again, it's not my point to arguing, oh, well, this particular migrant wants to conquer you. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's looking for a good life. I understand that, and that's what makes it complicated. But to just open your borders completely to that demographic, which has within it, not all of it, but within it, that kernel of animosity for Christians and so-called infidels, and the imperative to conquer the world in the name of jihad for Allah, which They're the good guys, keep in mind. They never see themselves as the bad guys. This is one of the issues with all conflicts. They're not bad guys. They're good guys in their minds. You're the bad guys because you're infidels, and they're trying to bring the light of Islam to you. So that's another aspect of how moral, or the morality that they feel. They're the good guys, okay, in doing this. Because look at you, Denmark and Europe, you're all dissipated drunks and, profligates, and there's no real. I'm sharing with you their arguments because I read it and I hear it. So they're bringing to you goodness, okay? But before, your ancestors, because I guess they had their own social order and their own goodness, and it was called Christianity, were able to fight it. But I guess in this current void of sort of this atheistic climate, anything goes, and who's to say they're wrong? Maybe they're right, etc., etc. And now you have what's happening. So it's a very unprecedented experience. A lot of people talk about the Roman Empire, this sort of thing happened, but it didn't, and we can get into that. It was actually, they were still cognizant of trying to maintain their own social, cultural mores, Rome. And it fell to the Goths and the Germanic peoples. And I'm just saying, some people use this analogy, but in this case, this is completely your doing. Not you, but it's Europe's doing. Okay, you're bringing a hostile force that's openly hostile, and lo and behold, when I look where Muslims are, I see chaos and violence and criminality and rape and grooming in England. Okay, that's what always happened under Islam. Okay.
So there you go. We'll just leave it there. There's another little bit. I'm sorry that was a little long, but I feel like, again, it's worth listening to because it kind of puts into perspective historically what we're doing is very, very outside of the norm. And I don't think anybody wants to do this, but it seems like our government is forcing us to do this with our own money, and we don't have an opt-out or an accountability mechanism to hold them accountable, to stop them from doing this on our behalf. Weird, right? Super duper weird. Isn't that the hallmark of a government, the ability to hold them accountable? That's what these guys are talking about here. And this is only a minute. I know, right? But this is interesting stuff. The Independent with Scott's Atlas is talking about how we're being led down the primrose path, basically, by our media, etc. Here we go.
In 2021.
It's too fast. I apologize. I try and get through it, and then I forget to reset things, and here we go. Oh, for crying out loud. And it took me to the website. It keeps doing this. You should be able to click on it for it to play.
Everyone thinks of Donald Trump. The fact that 4 prosecutors may have 500 indictments. I mean, Charles Manson didn't earn 500 indictments. So it's a use of the levers of government to warp elections and to be exempt from the consequences of their activity. We've had 4 subsequent FBI directors. They all have one thing in common. Robert Mueller misled the country when under oath. He said he didn't know what fusion GPS or steel were. And then, of course, James Comey claimed amnesia 245 times under oath. And Andrew McCabe, admittedly, by his own admission, lied 4 times to federal investigators, and then Christopher Wray has just been stonewalling. They all have one thing in common: there were no consequences. That's a threat to democracy.
Right, and I think this is, to me, this is the threat to democracy is when the people in power, whether elected or not, really, have no accountability to the people. And because to me the accountability, the founding of the country is based upon limitations of the people in power, right? I mean, this part of the limitation is the accountability, and accountability by election isn't enough. We need to have accountability. So how do we ensure accountability? I mean, one of the ways, and I think these have been lost, and this is what I'd like to get your thoughts on, the accountability from my lifetime has been number one, the investigative journalism side of things.
Yes, that's
the
one way.
The media has always been a lever insisting and holding these people in power to account. That to me has been gone, has been removed because the media is a gross failure in being an objective, truth-seeking body.
It's a gross failure. Why does it keep doing this? It's a gross failure, yes. but the media is doing what it's been paid to do. The media has been co-opted by the government and by bad actors on behalf NGOs on behalf of the government to tell us a story that is not holding the government accountable. So if we can't hold the government accountable, if we don't have a mechanism to hold the government accountable, then we can't stop the government doing things that we don't want them to do, right? If the election accountability mechanism is broken, and I think we can agree that it is broken, because we can't hold people accountable by election, because we had COVID happen, we had the economic implosion of our country happen, we had rampant massive inflation, and our dollar devalued to 10 cents, 15 cents, something like that. Not quite 15 cents yet. We've had our dollar devalued, and we can't do anything to stop these people from trying to start a trade war with Donald Trump, our representing our closest trade partner, right? The president-elect of the United States. We can't do anything like that. So the accountability of the investigative reporting is gone because the government's bought it. And the accountability of elections are gone because the governments own the polls, and censorship is rampant with regards to trying to get people like Faith Goldie, if she wanted to advertise in Toronto when she was running for mayor of Toronto, she wasn't able to advertise on Bell because they said it would ruin our reputation in order to do that. So there's no accountability. And I think that it's interesting that these guys are talking about accountability, and this guy's talking about historically we've never imported a hostile force into our country and supported them with all of our money. And we don't know what's going to happen, but we can reasonably guess if we know about history at all, right? Look at what happened to Rome and so on and so forth. And are they the same? No, we're doing this to ourselves. Whereas Rome didn't want to do it to themselves, I suppose. I'm not a Roman scholar, so I won't get into Rome, but I think that there are material differences between then and now, but there are a lot of similarities worth comparison. And Zayat says, this is happening in, where is it? Georgia. And she says, I am here and I'm not going anywhere. So the president, and there's a presidential election tomorrow, and today maybe. And she says, yeah, oh no. Yeah, today. Yesterday, actually. So she says, she rejects the presidential election and refuses to step down if she's voted out. She says the presidential election scheduled for tomorrow, planned by the illegitimate Georgian dream, are a parody. I have a kind of legitimacy from the absolute majority of the people for relations with European structures. So she's within the EU machine, and she says, listen, I'm not going anywhere, regardless of who you people vote for. It's very similar to the recent cancellation of the Bolivian? No, it wasn't Bolivia. Where was it? Romania, close. So very, very similar right after the Romanian thing. And now the Georgian president saying, nah, I don't think I'm going to step down. I think I like this power thing too much. And I've got all that legitimacy, you see. So you can't go with somebody who doesn't have the legitimacy of someone like me. Pretty wild stuff. And we need better mechanisms, and I think we can fix it. I really think we can. Okay, so we've got to talk about drones. We've got to talk about this drone thing. No, I was changing the speed so you wouldn't know that it was too fast. This person's talking about chasing drones, and we got to start at about 1:15 here. So he's chasing the drones with his own drones, and they put this drone up and they say, okay, so these drones don't put out a heat signal. There's no heat signature from these drones whatsoever. It's super weird. And there's 50 drones coming off the ocean into New Jersey. I had a tab that was a woman talking about the military drones and the patents on them. And she was going through it, and it was absolutely painstakingly here it is. She had websites, the patent office and things like that, and I couldn't find it for the life of me this morning. If you've got it, I'm sure I shared it. Somebody shared it with me. I'm sure I retweeted it, but sometimes when you retweet something, it goes into a void and you can't find it yourself. Sometimes when I tweet myself, I can't find it. I pin my daily video because you're supposed to be able to get more exposure to whatever your pinned tweet is, right? So I pin my daily video and I still get the same amount of views every day. Regardless of that, I sometimes can't find my daily video. So today's video sometimes just disappears into a void, even though it's pinned to the top of my profile. So that's pretty wild. Anyway, I couldn't find it. So if you could find it for me, if you've got it for me, send it my way and I'll try and tag it. I thought I had it because it's kind of an integral part. She was showing patents for drones that had wingspans of 8 feet up to 22 feet. And that kind of fits with a lot of the drones are, what these drones are, these people are saying these drones are. And the New Jersey thing, she had receipts on development of the military bases being used to develop these types of drones. Anyway, here's this, no heat signature, super weird. Here we go.
In the Ocean County Sheriff Department, they launched their own drones to see if they could intercept the mysterious aircraft New Jersey residents have been reporting in recent weeks. The department says these mystery drones evade detection because they don't give off heat like regular drones. Why do you think that is?
We don't know. It's just something that we haven't, it's not something that we've had our hands on. It's not something that we've experienced.
Something they hadn't experienced until now. One of their officers called 911 after seeing 50 of them come off the ocean.
Advised after we made contact with that officer that there were 50 that came off the ocean.
50?
50. That was my reaction also. There were 50 that were coming off the ocean.
And this is a sworn officer?
A sworn officer, yes. We contacted state police, we contacted the FBI, we contacted the Coast Guard, at which point the Coast Guard went out with their boat and they reported seeing 13 following their boat. And then the Coast Guard also advised that they went over them about 300 feet and had a wingspan of about 8 feet.
I see one right here. Did I see the same thing that officer saw? I'm still not sure. What I can show you is this video. What I can tell you is I've never...
See, there's Nessie's neck, right? And I'm just kidding. Here is Ian Carroll, and he says, did you see this thread circulated? Pretty interesting, pretty logical. I've been speaking about my worries about a suitcase nuke or dirty bomb for a while now. The air feels like the Empire needs another 9/11, but naturally they would need to go bigger. So my theory on this is they're going to say they can't have a nuclear bomb like in Terminator, because nuclear bombs like in Terminator don't exist. And I've got receipts for that. I'll put there's a 3-hour documentary talking about nukes don't exist, but I want to kind of stay focused on this. I don't want to explain that away right now. Fundamentally, you know the scene in Terminator where Sarah Connor's watching the playground and she sees the flash and then the shockwave comes and she gets blown into dust? That's what I'm talking about. That doesn't exist, okay? They can't do that. They can't launch a weapon that's going to do that 10 miles out from the epicenter, okay? They can bomb something and it's going to cause lots and lots of damage and lots of people are going to get killed and crushed by buildings and all sorts of other stuff. But that nuclear bomb thing that we saw in Terminator can't do that, okay? So they can't do a shock and awe thing using that technology. It doesn't exist. So what they can do is create a dirty bomb situation. And they can create a situation where they put something in the city and a whole bunch of people get sick and people go, oh no, there's a dirty bomb. I believe that they can make a lot of people sick with some kind of radiation and all sorts of other something or other radiating from a central point in a city. I think they probably need multiple to get a really, really broad kind of uptake of illness in order to justify whatever it is. But they'd have the media on their side, so there'd be massive, massive reports. So they say, oh no, a dirty bomb's gone off in this populated city, New York or whatever. There's thousands of casualties, 6,000 plus. The more the merrier, basically, because that bolsters their... The bigger the body count, the bigger the number, the better for the psyop, right? And so they say, oh no, all these people have died, 100,000 plus. They'll say a big number and they'll run with it. And then once the thing dies down, they'll say this radiation is going to last for 100 years. It's going to be 100 years. And they're going to say, you can't go into that city because you're going to die, like Chernobyl. You're going to die, right? And then they're going to say, you can't go to the farmland too. Oh no, we found a dirty bomb in the farmland. You can't farm this land. And it's going to be COVID lockdowns, climate lockdowns, UN lockdowns. Anywhere they say there's a dirty bomb, we're going to say, oh no, we can't farm there. And I think that that's their vector. I think that that's what this is all about. I think that that's where this is trying to move us, because they can't do the one, but they can do the other. And the other offers them all sorts of control, right? Oh no, we found another dirty bomb. Oh no, we found another one. Oh no, we figured out a better way to clean this one can be cleaned up, but that one can't be cleaned up, right? Like there's going to be all sorts of inconsistencies, just like COVID. And I hope I'm wrong. I honestly hope I'm wrong. I'm speculating here and I hope I'm wrong about it. Okay. So this is the Ian Carroll, the thread that's being bandied around, okay? Jersey says, I'm one of a few groups of people who know exactly what the drones are in New Jersey. Okay, so take it with a grain of salt, okay? If everybody in the world is like, oh, man, what are these drones things? Is it aliens? And this guy says he knows, take it with a grain of salt, but it's interesting. It's interesting. This tweet will go into the void as I have no followers, but I'll share anyway. Please retweet for reach. What you're seeing are American-made HPGE nuclear detector drones. They can detect the presence of gamma rays miles away. But what is a gamma ray? That'd be the stuff we attribute to radiation, electromagnetic waves that penetrate you and cause cancer. HPGE drones are built to inspect nuclear sites, but these ones aren't. That's 3. These ones aren't. Sorry, that's... Okay, there it is. In the late 2000s, the DoD needed a response to the threat of dirty bombs from ISIS coming into ports in New York and New Jersey. They've been stocking up on these drones for a while. Some were deployed to Ukraine when Russia threatened the use of dirty bombs. They look weird because they're heavy and have giant cryo-coolers mounted and giant horn antennas to communicate on wave frequencies that can't be jammed. This is where I come in. The technology of these drones have few suppliers, both for wave equipment and the high purity germanium, the same suppliers that are the backbone of my industry. So what are they doing? Collecting information and how public will react, PSYOP, and testing their ability to sweep a port city like New York for dirty bombs. And this is 8 dirty bombs. Jersey was chosen because it's the closest port city to New York, and New York would be too dense for reliable wave communications. But why is the DoD silent? Okay, I have a question here, so pause. If the wave is non-hackable and like super secure, and they need these drones that are sweeping to use these non-jammable things, why is a dense city like New York a problem for it? That shouldn't be a problem. Like that's something that sticks out to me. Those two things shouldn't be true. If you're using the super special, awesome technology that doesn't get jammed, then you're not worried about a dense population because you're not on the same radio wave frequency or anything like that. Like, it doesn't make sense. So, red flag. Back to this again, because in a scenario we have a threat of a dirty bomb and the public doesn't yet know, the Department of Defense needs to know how the public would react if these were deployed to sweep a city. What many don't realize is Ukraine is the reason we're here. That was the first time we deployed them in a combat zone, but make no mistake, they're for protecting homeland, as a Department of Defense bought hundreds of thousands to act as swarms capable of sweeping a city. When Obama was president, there were drones in the skies of the Middle East, and those drones brought death and bombs. And they're going to say, listen, we need to have the drones in New Jersey to sweep for nuclear suitcase weapons for your safety, comrade. Do you not see similarities here? I see similarities here. I just feel like it's too convenient, right? Just put up those planes in the sky. Should it have lights? Sure. Beeping lights, all sorts of stuff. Should we say it doesn't have a heat signature? Oh yeah, sure, it doesn't have a heat signature. Have you seen Wag the Dog? In Wag the Dog, he just keeps talking about this super secret bomber, right? The super secret bomber is a red herring. It doesn't exist. It's malarkey. It's bullshit, right? But he starts this thing to start another dead end series of reports talking about this bomber that doesn't exist, and it's a dead end, right? And so it just seems like we're being told and like manipulated. Somebody's got these drones, and I bet you it's the CIA or whoever 3-letter agency's got it. And we're being manipulated. I feel like we're being manipulated. I'm not thinking to myself, I hope there's not a dirty bomb. I'm thinking to myself, I hope the government doesn't F with us more, because it seems like we're being F'd with. It seems like this is a psyop to F with us. So that's the only feeling I have about this at this point in time. I am not buying it, is what I'm telling you. Not buying it by a lot. He says, should note, I'm not a military expert, but I spent 1/3 of my career as an RF engineer. We're only hired in military, telecom, and finance. I'm speculating that this is just a drill, but I know exactly what those drones are. My guess is Iran's simulation made the drill a priority. Our situation made the drill a priority. Make no mistake, a dirty bomb is or was until now the greatest threat to America. A few going off in New York City and central Los Angeles would cripple us. The evidence we'd need to respond in kind would be impossible to get in time or at all. All our toys would be worthless with no target. Oh, and how do I know that they're not foreign owned? Because I'm confident that they're HPGE drones. But even if you don't believe me, you can see they have bright lights on them to keep our aircraft safe. Something an enemy wouldn't care about. Okay, sure, I guess, sure. It seems like, I don't know. What do you think? Here's more. I said the math of nuclear. Oh yeah, this is me speculating about the dirty bombs being the goal. So they want lockdowns for nuclear fallout or nuclear radiation or whatever, and they want starvation, they want population reduction. This ticks all their boxes. Next news network says breaking intel from a verified high-level source with top secret special access clearance just dropped bombshell information on us to the mysterious drones being seen across the U.S. These are our drones tracking gamma rays linked to possible weapons of mass destruction in a massive counter-terror operation. It's for your safety, comrade. Be skeptical. Be skeptical. Please be skeptical. Don't believe what they're telling you. And if they tell you it's for your safety, be double skeptical. Oh, no, let me just inject this thing for you. No, it's cool that planes are flying over your house all the time. It's for your safety. It's for your safety. We know where you are all the time for your safety. Okay? So don't let them convince you it's not for your safety. Clandestine says another theory about the drones. What do you think? I think the plausibility lies with its domestic drones looking for gamma rays. I think that's way more plausible than this one, but hey man, what do you think? Let me know. Clandestine says, food for thought. In 2022, Russian military claimed that they had found nefarious drones and plans at conquered Ukrainian military installations. The plans showed that the U.S. and Ukraine were spreading disease via drones carrying pathogens in water particles sprayed via 30-liter aerosol canisters. I have no evidence to suggest that this is what's happening in New Jersey, nor do I think that that's what's happening. But anytime I see odd drone usage, this is always lurking in the back of my mind. Governments or even private NGOs have the capability to easily spread disease in the same way farmers spray their crops with pesticides via aerosol drone. To be clear, I'm not saying that this is what I think is happening, but just something to keep on your radar as potential application of military drones. Yeah, interesting, right? So could be. And this is another one talking about war and peace and so on. But this is Mark Rutte, and Mark Rutte is trying to get the United Nations, and he's the NATO Secretary General. So he's trying to get NATO in the position of war footing, and he's using the term war footing. So here's what's going on over in the United Nations with Rutte. He says, Odysseus says, war has been good for business, but peace in Ukraine will be bad for business. So NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is fear-mongering to try to fool Europeans and Canadians to sacrifice their pensions, healthcare, and education to instead send even more of their money to the U.S. to buy even more weapons, because Blinken and Austin don't think that Europe's $182 billion sent to the U.S. for weapons since 2022 is good enough, even though NATO members spent over $1.341 trillion in military expenditures in 2023 compared to $295 billion for China and $109 billion for Russia. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is attributed to these quotes. Danger is moving towards us at full speed. What's happening in Ukraine could happen here too. We can prevent the next big war on NATO territory. It's time to shift to a wartime mindset. Every day this war causes more devastation and death, over 1 million casualties since February 22. War is brutal and ugly. War is also very costly in economic terms. Zelensky doesn't need more peace plans. He needs, again, ammunition and air defense. It has to be the government in Ukraine, first of all, to decide to agree to peace. Zelensky, even though NATO members spend over $1.341 trillion in 23, it is time to turbocharge our defense production and defense spending. It's true we spend more on defense now than we did a decade ago, but we are still spending far less than during the Cold War. Together, NATO allies represent half of the world's economic and military might. 2% of the GDP in defense spending is not enough, even though since 2017, we in Europe spend $641 billion more than if we had kept spending at the same levels in 2014. So they're trying to spin up an EU army, and they've got all of their assets like the United Nations, NATO, all of these things moving in lockstep. And you got to pay attention to that kind of stuff because it's not good, right? It's not good. It's very concerning. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful